Well, hello and welcome to the 56th episode of the Adoption and Fostering Podcast with me, Al Coates, and...
Moi, Scott Casson-René.
Oh, that was very, very flamboyant. There's no
A little bit of
French
France
in there, is
there.
there? Have you
No,
been to
there
France?
isn't. No. Yes, I have been to France.
Well
Twice.
done.
3 times.
You live a life I could only dream of.
I know.
Excellent.
And you did that in 2 takes. Well done. Because I thought you were going to do it in the first one until you fluffed it up. So
Yeah, I found 56th. It's quite a difficult one to say. 56th.
Yeah.
I should go to pronunciation lessons. Yeah, anyway,
You do.
the banter.
How are you? How are you? How are you? How are you, Al? How are you? 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 I've been in Ireland. How are you? How are you? How are you doing? How are you doing?
You've been in Ireland. It looks like you're almost living in Ireland at the moment. I have no idea. You're dotting over.
I might as well be.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
No, I am well. I have had a very busy week. It's Wednesday night, and I've been up and down the East Coast main line 3 times this week. I've been on NVR course, but we'll not talk about that now.
No, don't talk about that now. We'll talk about that another time. Yeah.
Well, maybe later. See how we fare. So yeah, I'm a bit frazzled. And you? How are you?
Yeah, similar. Been away, dabbling in this and dabbling in that, and busy.
Rather bizarre that we were both in Leeds today.
I know. What was that all about? In fact, we weren't the only ones.
No.
Because Mr. Oers was also there today. And for those of you who don't know, it's Mark Oers, the DFE consultant for the Regional Adoption Agency program. Yeah. And he was on the same train as me, but I didn't see him until I went through the gates. So, because he's quite recognisable. Bless him, with his grey mop. I'm sure he'll love me for saying that. Yeah. So I just popped my head around and went, all right, Oers, and then I ran off because I was running late from meetings. So.
All right, Oers.
And I did say, all right, Oers, and ran off.
But it was just all very bit odd. And I thought, then you texted me and you said, oh, there he is. And then you outed him on Twitter, and I thought, oh, what if he's come up for like a secret job interview or something?
No.
And you've outed him, and the DFE don't know he's there.
Exactly. Well, like I say, if public money's been spent, we have a right to know where it's been spent. So.
But we don't know it's public money. He could be on a.
Well, I don't think he was on a hen do or something. I think he was actually working. Yeah.
He wasn't dressed in a tutu.
No, not today.
Anyway,
he doesn't listen anyway. If he listened, then we'd be in big trouble.
Yeah, he probably has people. He has people who do listen for him.
Although to be fair, I challenged him and asked him to. Well, no, we challenged him the other day, didn't we, to come back? And he said that he will come back. So that will be good because, we need more information on the regional adoption agencies from his perspective in terms of what we were talking about in the last podcast. See what I did there?
Nice one.
I did a little segue in there for you, didn't I?
Nice one. Well, shall we crack on? Because I'm sure that this is banter-tastic. But we are here. We've got a little interview with the wonderful Professor Dr. Beth Neil.
Dun, dun, dun.
And I can confess that the interview was undertaken in November.
Well, it's only November now, isn't it?
No, just cast your mind back. But I was invited to be part of a reference group on the research he's doing, and so we undertook an interview. I undertook an interview afterwards. So shall we put it on?
Yeah, do.
Because it is interesting, and I think she's ask some really interesting questions. We can come to that, and then we can maybe unpick some of that. And I want to talk to you about NVR.
Okay.
Yes, because I've been texting you, haven't I, Scott?
You have.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a bit of music on now. It's called "I'm a Believer, I Couldn't Leave Her."
You're a funny
Anyway,
man.
the amazing and wonderful Beth Neil, the sultry tones of Beth Neil.
Hello, Beth.
Hi, Al.
Thank you very much for speaking to me. And today I've been at a meeting where we've been talking about your latest research project, and I think it's an issue that would be really close to a lot of adoptive parents, especially if their children are a little bit older, coming into young adulthood. It's an issue and a topic that is probably people are really mindful of. So could you tell me, what is your latest plan?
Well, what we've called the project is Being Adopted, Becoming a Parent. And it's a project that's about people who are adopted and what happens and what their experience is when they have their own children.
Yeah.
We're not just interested in adopted people. We're interested in the adopted parents and what's it like to become a grandparent.
Right.
So that's what the study's about.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing this at the University of East Anglia in Norwich. It's funded by the Economic and Social Research Council.
It sounds like you're obliged to say those things.
I've done the media training. They say whatever you say in the first sentence, you have to say, here at the University of East Anglia, we're doing a study. So, I've done that.
Why did you choose that? Because that seems an interesting topic.
Okay, well, I've been doing various projects around adoption for about 22 years now. So one study I've done looking at adopted children's contact, we followed them up pretty much from when they're adopted. Last time we saw them, most of them were kind of 17, 18, 19, so they're just entering adulthood. And I suppose it set me thinking, what is the next stage in their journey?
Right.
Now, most of these young people were not parents. Only one or two had a child of their own. But that's obviously something that comes next in adulthood. Now, we saw that a lot of these adopted young people, some of them were doing really brilliantly well, some of them had some ups and downs, and about 1 in 5 of them had really quite difficult problems at that point in their life, mental health problems. Some were into drugs and falling out with their parents, all these things we know can happen for children who've had difficult experiences in early life. So how are they going to manage being a parent? Might it be a real turning point? Might it be something that sets their life on a more positive track, that motivates them to kind of get things together?
Yeah.
Or are we going to see, like we see with some young people who have experience of the care system, that children adopted from the care system are more likely to have early parenthood, to become mums and dads at a young age, maybe when they're not really ready and not planned and not able to manage that very well. Mm-hmm. Are we going to see adoptees having their own children needing to be looked after by somebody else, maybe by their parents, adoptive parents, or even coming into care?
So is that what is there research in relation to children who've been through the care system? Is there, around their journey into parenthood, is there research out there for those children?
No, so there's nothing
of them as well either.
On this group really about their experiences of becoming a parent. But if we think how long children have been adopted from care and from these more difficult backgrounds in this country, it's kind of 30 or 40 years worth of children. So there's going to be tens of thousands of adopted people out there, many of whom will be parents. Some will be thinking about becoming a parent. Most will, because most people do become a parent one way or the other. So, but it's a group we haven't studied. So there's bits of research around adoptees as parents. So we see in the research around searching and reunion, it's often a trigger for an adopted person to find out some more about their background.
Yeah, it seems like a natural moment for them to reflect on their early life experiences and ask questions that perhaps they hadn't asked previously. Yeah, and you might think becoming a parent yourself might make you think more about your birth parents. And, you might have a whole range of feelings about that. You might feel, well, I love my baby so much. How could my mum ever have let me go? Didn't she love me? Or you might feel, I love my baby so much and it would hurt me so much to give her up. That now I just feel so much empathy for my birth mum. So kind of really new thoughts born out of that kind of very, very emotive experience. Yeah, or you might just want to answer all the questions that medical professionals put to you about your birth family history and your mother's pregnancy and not have the answers to that.
So these are the kind of issues that maybe more, for want of a better word, traditional adoptees, people adopted in the 50s and 60s have highlighted that it stirs the pot. Was a quote from one study we looked at. It stirs the pot and the adoption issues come back up to the surface. And maybe, another thing is, for adoptees in closed adoptions who have their own child, that might be the first person you have ever met in living memory who you are biologically related to.
Yeah.
So
quite a profound experience, potentially.
Yeah, so there's some interesting themes that have come out from other adoptees, but we don't know what are the experiences of people who've been adopted in more recent times, most of whom we know have had difficult early experiences or come from difficult family backgrounds. So we want to find out about this group. I think most people agree that adoption is a lifelong experience, but most of our research on adoptees doesn't extend into adulthood and look at adult
life
developmental
issues.
Stages and life issues. There's a few bits and pieces, but so we want to kind of fill that gap.
Well, that sounds really interesting. Yeah. So you also, you were going to say, but I'll butt in because I'm okay.
Yeah.
So what about adoptive parents and their experience? What are you looking at there?
So again, it's the next chapter for a parent to become a grandparent. What do we know about adoptive parents becoming grandparents? Virtually nothing. We haven't found any single study that has focused on that.
Well, that's exciting for you.
So we're breaking new ground. We just want to know, what is it like? And there's lots of issues we think might come up, but we'll have to see what comes up. So, we do know that some adoptees are struggling and their adoptive parents are stepping in and they're trying to help out. They're trying to help their sons and daughters. Sometimes they're bringing up those babies themselves.
Yeah, I mean, that's thinking about the community, and that is something I've seen, people who reluctantly, or not so reluctantly, but feel the need that they need to then step in at that moment and kind of arrest that pattern from repeating again.
And what does that do to your relationship with your son or daughter when you're parenting their children? Are they grateful? Does it bring you closer together? Or do they blame you and say, you've taken my baby away from me?
Yeah.
I can imagine a situation where an adopted person might then see their parents loving their baby and thinking, I didn't get that when I was little, with their birth parents. So we're interested in, that's one scenario, I guess, where the adoptive parents are very hands-on helping bring up the baby. Other people, it might be a really joyous time in life, as we know it is for a lot of people. It's a massively rewarding stage of life. Something that's so special about mid and late life is to be a grandparent.
Yeah.
So
you're trying to kind of unpack all of that and see what the cohort's experience is.
And does it stir the pot for adoptive parents with regard to all that stuff that happened years ago?
I'm trying not to answer from my perspective.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to confess all my thoughts and feelings.
Yeah. So, might you revisit through your son or daughter's fertility experiences you've had in the past with infertility?
And that loss of maybe those very early childhood experiences that a lot of adopters haven't had.
Yes.
Those first days and weeks that.
Yeah.
My example of being that with my daughters who've had children, I literally don't know what to do with a week-old baby. It's an alien creature to me. Just bring it back when it can talk.
If your experience of parenting has been toddlers or older children and you've missed out on that stage, again, it might be wonderful to be involved in that stage, but there might be mixed feelings. So
So that's really interesting. So you're doing that project, just starting it now, and you've just released the details how to get in touch with you. And so I'll put them on our website, and I'll tweet them out, and I'll give links to because you've got a website, haven't you?
We've got a website, and so we're interested in speaking to people who were adopted in the last 30 years. And who have a child, a biological child, or they might have adopted a child, and we want to speak to them. Which is
not uncommon, is it?
No, not uncommon.
No.
And we want to speak to, really importantly, 20 mums and 20 dads.
Right.
So most studies, if you say we're doing a study about families, you end up talking to women, basically. But we want to make sure we have the dad perspective in there. And we want to speak to 40 adopted people who were adopted in the last 30 years. And we want to speak to 40 adoptive parents. Again, we want to hear from granddads and grandmas, nanas, whatever you call them. We want to speak to them. And the same criteria, really, we want them to have adopted their son or daughter who's now had a child in the last 30 years.
Right.
Beyond that, we don't really have any exclusions. So we want as wide a range of experience as possible. You know, people who've had birth family contact, people who haven't, people from a range of ethnic backgrounds, adopted people who were placed with their siblings and those who weren't. So we're going for diversity in our sample.
What about international adoptions? Is that something?
Yeah, fine.
Right. Because I think we were talking about the children being adopted from the care system. So would that include international adoption?
Well, we started off thinking our focus is children adopted from care. And when we did a lot of consultation about this with adoptees and with adoptive parents, that's an unclear term.
Right.
It means different things to different people.
It seems really clear in my head, but
it helped us to focus down on actually why are we setting that criteria, and what we were thinking of really is we want to do a study that is going to be of relevance to people adopted in more recent times. And that's basically what we want to do. So let's say people adopted in the last 30 years. Now,
which coincides with the Children Act, doesn't it?
It coincides with the Children Act and the focus in policy on permanency and adoption for children from care.
Nice number.
It doesn't exclude people relinquished for adoption, for want of a better term, or inter-country adoptees. And our adoptee kind of stakeholder group were quite keen on that because they were saying, actually, just being adopted in itself can have a lot of issues that come up when you're parenting. So, you know, let us tell you how we think and feel.
That's totally valid.
And because, so we went for the 30-year thing rather than trying to say this type of adoption or that type of adoption. We're just saying a more recent adoption.
But does that also mean that the findings that you've got are not to exclude those people before? Because there's a lot of people before that who've been parents and all that, but does it mean that then your findings are more applicable to the current kind of context?
That's what we're aiming for. And it's not that we don't think older adoptees, that their experiences are not important or relevant. We absolutely do, but you just have to have a focus in a study. I mean, if it was up to me, I would just research everything about adoption all the time and look at everything, but it comes to a point where you have to say, right, in this project, this is what we're doing, and maybe there's another project that me or somebody else can do.
Get one of your minions to do that, couldn't you?
Yeah, PhD student.
Get them to do that, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
So you're looking for people now, and I guess that people can go to the website and they'll be able to get really specifics about how to get in touch.
There'll be a lot more information about what being in the study involves and how to get in touch. People can So they can contact us through the website, they can phone us up, text us, email. People can send me a direct message on Twitter if they want to do that, and one of the team will get in touch and tell you more about it.
Yeah.
So there's no commitment. If you contact us to say, well, I'm thinking about it, we'll tell you what's involved.
We'll start a conversation.
And then you make up your mind, obviously. We only want people to take part who want to take part.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But it's massively helpful to us because, you can't do this study any other way than talking to people who've had those experiences. Yeah.
That sounds really interesting, and I'm really looking forward to what you find out and what you discover, really. So that's 2020, isn't it, by the time?
2020, we will finish, and what we really hope to come out of it, on the basis of what people tell us their experiences are, does anything need to change to make the system better, more helpful for adopted people, for adopted parents and families, and for that third generation, for the children? Is there anything we can do to make sure this stage of life, which should be joyous and wonderful and beautiful, is as joyous and wonderful and beautiful as it can be?
So I guess that's a really broad scope, isn't it? So that could be policy, it could just be guidance, it could be whatever.
Yeah, and it could be adoption services, it could be
maternity services,
maternity services. Should it be a question that a health professional should make an inquiry? Are you adopted? There might be pros and cons of doing that. But we want to
ask those questions.
See where that goes. Because at the moment, I don't think there is much out there. If you're adopted and you're becoming a parent, and it does stir the pot, and you do have troubles, I don't think there's much in the way of dedicated services that are looking at this intersection of being adopted and being a mum or being a dad.
Or even any knowledge base.
So we're trying to fill these gaps.
Yeah, because anecdotally you do often hear that sort of that narrative of people saying, this is the first time I saw someone who had my eyes, my skin, my whatever. But then there's no actual, as you're saying, there's no knowledge base at all, which is quite surprising, really. But
yeah.
All right, I'm going to move you on.
Okay.
Going into uncharted territory, I didn't tell you some of this. Tell me how we're doing with contact, because I have to say that after our last podcast, that was probably one of the most we got the most amount of feedback from, one of the most downloaded people, really interested. So where are we going with contact? Have you seen any movement over the last, I suppose it's 6-7 months?
Well, I keep plugging away. We've been doing a lot of work this summer. My colleague Julie Young, we got some money from the university, and she's been doing workshops around the country, trying to sort of spread the word with practitioners about our research and our website, and get people looking at that and thinking about that.
Is there any thought of doing that for adoptive parents?
That would be great, actually. I would love to do that.
Because I think that there's a sense that adoptive parents are very, as a group, not universally, they've got quite a sense of agency. Yeah. And they can force the arm collectively of practitioners to change their practice. Yeah. There you go.
That would be great. I mean, some adoptive parents, some of these events, adoptive parents have been invited to come. So there have been some adoptive parents in the audience, but it's not been specifically for them.
Right, but they've blagged their way in.
They've blagged their way in. But no, that's a great idea, actually.
Or a conference.
A conference.
Why don't you do a conference?
For adoptive parents about contact.
For professionals and adoptive parents.
Yeah, well, I guess...
I'm putting you on the spot. Right, we'll get our diaries out. No.
Yeah, I mean, the other group I've been trying to target a bit this year, since I spoke to you, is lawyers, judges, barristers. So I wrote an article in Family Law, just trying to summarise the key findings of the research. So people have got an easy kind of reference. What are the main things that we've found, and what do I think that means in terms of the kind of questions maybe lawyers should ask in court
at that very initial
stage. Yeah. And I was suggesting in that because of this thing we talked about in the podcast, there's these cut and pasted contact plans.
Yeah.
Indirect contact, indirect contact, indirect contact, regardless of the circumstances. That, perhaps courts should ask questions about that. Well, why? Why is...
And have an informed understanding.
Have you thought about anything different? Have you looked at this research? How are you going to meet children's needs? And so we hope that some lawyers are reading that and...
You're plugging away, you're keeping going. I am slightly anxious because the Quakers are coming, aren't they?
Yeah, the Quakers are coming. They want to tidy up.
We've overrun our stay in this room, but Beth, thank you very much for speaking to me, and you shall keep us updated with this.
Yes,
stuff.
definitely. Ask me back when we've got some findings.
For sure. Always a pleasure, never a chore.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So there you go. That was Beth Neil. I have to say, the interview would have been longer, but there was a frosted glass window, and there was one of the Quakers was literally loitering behind, and one of Beth's assistants or helpers or researchers was on the other side, and you could see them having this conversation where she was trying to persuade him not to come in because he had to do something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was quite forceful for a Quaker.
Oh, crikey.
He had something to do with porridge, important porridge business he had to do. Those Quakers are like.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oof.
Well done, Al. You've just alienated the Quakers that listen to
us. Oh, yeah, that's the Quaker vote gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, well.
Sorry, Quakers. I love you.
Yeah. In fact, I had porridge this morning.
I always enjoy listening to Beth's voice and what she talks about, because it all makes so much sense, doesn't it? She's got so much knowledge, that woman. She really does. Anyway, go on.
She does. I thought it was really interesting that she said she would really like to, if she could, she'd just research every single thing about adoption that she could.
She would, yeah. And evaluate. Blah.
So as I promised in the interview, what I'll do is I'll put the links to the research project in the blurb on the page and stuff, so people can link in that. But I was thinking, because I guess you represented, because 10% of all adopters are same-sex couples. Is that right?
I think it's 12%, but yeah.
No, not that we're counting.
No, not at all.
So the percentage is increasing.
12.250962.
Yeah. Figures to hand. And every single couple. And
I've got a board. I've got one of them digital boards, and just up to
a digital number and every time another adopter gets same-sex couple,
and a golden egg falls out of the ceiling.
Mike, you open another bottle of Prosecco.
Oh, not every 3 seconds, love. Oh dear.
Anyway, way off point. No, I was thinking that what's interesting is that I was just wondering what the impact on that, because the impact of this issue on same-sex couples, because for us as a family, like for me as someone who's watching my children have children, are there issues that I kind of anticipated. I don't know whether I'm making any sense. Am I making any sense? But for same-sex couple, is that the same? Because you've talked often about how you had no expectation to have biological children.
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
No, yeah. I think you are. Yeah, I think that's something that will. Oh, blimey! You've just scared the living daylights out of me, man. Thank you for that. Because I don't. I mean, we've obviously thought about.
You've got 3 sons.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and we've got 2 bricks at the back door for each one of them. So.
You test my registration with every. I'm gonna have to send you on a course.
You are a parenting course, maybe Webster Stratton or something. I don't.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one because obviously we have thought about it. It was acknowledged very early on that we could potentially have been grandparents by now. Actually, had we listened to the social workers, I'm glad we didn't. I'm glad we were just open and honest about things like sex. However, that doesn't stop it being a scary prospect.
Are you scared?
Well, I don't know if scared's right. I think I would be scared to have that responsibility put in my door, if that makes sense.
Because I guess that's a whole.
I mean, we never. Yeah. Bear in mind, we never had babies because that wasn't something that we've had a need to fill, if that makes sense. And I'm not sure how. Yeah. But saying that, and this is it's maybe relevant. I think when we adopted, bear in mind we adopted quite a while ago
Back in the day.
in the gay world, because it's quite new back then, and there was a lot of older children placed at that point with same-sex couples, and it wasn't younger children. When I'm saying younger, I mean like 4, 3, 2, 1. And I went on a gay dad's social event on
I saw that, yeah.
weekend, yeah, and I was really surprised. Well, no, I wasn't surprised, because I know this happens, but actually to have the kind of the majority of them there, actually they've got the under 4s, and that's it's not a new thing. I mean, I know it's been going on, but there is a population in the LGBTQ kind of adoptive parent world that have younger children who have had the nappies, the sleepless nights, and all that sort of stuff. I guess for me it would be quite new. It would be quite a new thing to consider, because I don't think we've had a baby for any more than 2 nights at a time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm talking about the physical care of a child. I'm not talking about the reason for that physical care. Do you know what I mean?
It's just not in your experience. Yours on like me. It's I mean,
a newborn is not your experience either, is it?
Not at all. Slightly freaked out. And I think that is interesting, isn't it? Because I think that's something that we never even part of the preparation. And is it a big deal? Well, it's not been a big deal until it was like a thing that was happening to us.
Yeah, but I think I mean, for the majority, I would imagine it is going to be a big deal, isn't it? I
mean, it's been interesting to see the effect it's had on my children, on the girls.
Yeah.
And I think it has. I would never dare to speak on their behalf.
No.
I'll have a go though.
They've got their own voices, love. Remember that. Adoptees have a voice too,
Oh, don't open that can of worms, cheeky boy. But it has. I think it has had an effect on them. But there's no kind of the anecdotal. Oh, it's the first time I looked into someone's face and saw that. Well, that doesn't really apply, because they've got siblings, and they've got this murky story that involves sort of biological contact and stuff. So yeah, interesting. The world's moved on, hasn't it?
Well, that's the thing as well, and I think that it's like anything, isn't it? I don't get too much out of you, but I get a lot of the good lady C in terms of being a grandmother. Not that I'm going to be a grandmother, but you know what I mean. But obviously, she supports the girls being a grandmother to them, and it's really quite interesting to watch how she's taken to that, like a duck to water. I'm using that kind of old adage that if it's on Facebook, then it's a positive experience kind of thing.
it's real, and it did happen.
Yeah. But yeah, you've scared me now. Thank you for that, Mr. Coates, you evil git.
But it's interesting with the good Mrs. C is that she got to go into a birthing room and witness a birth, and from a mother of 6 to have never been in a birthing room and never witnessed a birth. So that was a really, really profound experience for her.
Yeah.
As she keeps telling me.
Well, yeah, I mean, why would she have you there? My God, you'd be too busy and, wondering when they were coming in with the chimney sweep or whatever it is, the Vaseline, the dice.
I forgot all about that, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I know what you mean. That's a really thank you. I'm going to have nightmares for weeks now. I'll be becoming a grandparent. Right. I think I'm quite lucky so far in terms of the care that's been taken to avoid this.
You're dancing around this subject.
Yeah. I think the threat of the 2 bricks at the back door were enough when they were 12.
Look what we got you for Christmas: uranium underpants.
But that's not to say it won't happen. I'm just hopeful that it'll happen when they're fully kind of developed as adults and they've come to terms with their past, and that whatever it is that causes them to react to things the way they do now, actually they've resolved or had helped to resolve, not to fix, but to kind of move them on to understand that.
And that's what I think what Beth's looking at really is because it's no stereotype, because our children reflect the whole spectrum. They are spectrum.
They do. Spectrum again?
Spectrum again. But I think that it's complicated, isn't it? Parenting, if you've had rocky parenting, is complicated.
Yeah. I'll say, lad.
I love a duck. That was sensible, wasn't it?
That was very sensible, but also very scary. I can imagine everybody listening going, "Oh my days."
Yeah. Yeah,
or a lot of people, not everybody.
No.
I mean, let's face it. Some people are going to be looking forward to becoming grandparents, aren't they? For their own reason. I mean, don't get me wrong. When it happens, I'll be, as delighted as you were. You went, yay, and then you moved on to chop some wood, didn't you? I'll do the same.
We're dancing around that story. That's a story that I can't tell in public. My response to the
Anyway, I mean, don't get me wrong. I in that respect, of course, but I guess it's the same when they become independent, isn't it? They move out, which we've got experience of. You're still a parent. You're still in some way morally responsible for them, financially responsible for them.
That one never ends.
It's kind of that's a different kind of responsibility because that's lifelong. They can always give up a flat that they can't afford, but they can't afford to give up a baby that they can't afford.
True.
But you have a responsibility.
People who've moved into special guardianship and which is stuff Beth again sort of highlighted, and you just think that like with all, not all of our children, but with a lot of children, the future is different. Maybe it can be different. And
our commitment has to be a little bit longer as well.
Yeah, that it just takes a bit longer to kind of reach get that adult brain wired in.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of our kids. And contact. It's interesting to see that Beth's been howking herself around and speaking to judges and barristers and things.
Do you know, the contact thing fascinates me. It really does, because I think I mentioned this before. I mean, we have different views on what contact should look like for us. I think that some of it comes down to actually the time that it takes to actually just continue being a parent. And just living day-to-day life, but actually, and Mummy Writer, the Twitter user, who I know of years gone by, she came to the Adoption UK conference and she left her children in the care of their birth mum for the first time overnight. It was all. Yeah, it's a long time since they've taken into care and stuff, and it was all kind of well organised and well prepared for. But the whole thing fascinates me because I am a really strong believer in the fact that letterbox is not contact. Letterbox is a letter. Every 6 months it's meaningless in a lot of ways. I know it causes a lot of stress for people to write those letters every 6 months and stuff. And I'm, it's really interesting because we always end up talking about stuff that relates to what I do in my day job, and I've been doing a little bit of work on that this last couple of weeks. So, but yeah, I have some really strong views on that, and I would love nothing more than the boys are older now. We've had a little bit of contact from birth family directly, but for Jacob it's a little bit different, and I would like it to be different for him as well, and for his birth mum.
It's interesting you talk about letters, because I was thinking I've never heard anyone say, "Oh, the letters are working really well for us." I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that. Or that that we write them and we get something back that's meaningful and just doesn't. It's happen.
Just words on a page. It's just words on a page.
Yeah, and I just think we just kind of stuck in this dogmatic, or that's the least that adopted, or the most that adopters will do, the least that families will accept. And you go, come on. Exactly. But what I also find really interesting is if I know that if I went on Twitter now and I said, it's XXYZ about contact, raised a question, or it would be one of those threads that would go and go and go for days.
It'd be like a snowball, wouldn't it? Yeah.
And you think, but this is being led by families that have walked the adoption path a bit longer. And again, how many times do people say, the first year after adoption, I was set against it. By year 4, 7, 10, totally different perspective.
Exactly. And that's the key thing, isn't it? Because my experience of it 12, 13 years ago, however long it was, is very different to what it is now. And I think that you live through various things and you understand it more, and new research, new stuff comes out all the time. And I think what Beth is trying to do is amazing. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not going to work for everybody. Let's face it, it is really not going to work for everybody.
No.
That direct contact piece. But actually, do you know what? It can make a difference to some of these families. It can be make or break for some of them, actually. And that's an important thing to consider. And I think that's where Beth and her team, they have amazing skills at being able to present it in a way that actually, it could well become something that, is just considered, well, I mean, it should be considered in placement of a child anyway, but actually, in terms of assessment of what sort of contact's needed, that's what Beth's team, for me, that's what they need to do, because I think that this is overdue. It's well overdue.
To start to look with different eyes. And Beth's someone messaged us on Twitter the other day, just saying the thing with Beth, I've sent it on to the social worker because they're kind of stuck in this narrative, this old view of contact, and we want to try and shift them out of it because we're willing to be flexible but be risk averse. We're not risk averse, but neither are we stupid. No. And you go, let's make something that's bespoke. So anyway, maybe she'll do a conference. I don't know. Maybe she'll not. I don't. Maybe Adoption UK should do a conference. Could I dare I say that?
Thanks for that.
Yeah. That was a big sigh, Scott.
I know.
Oh,
it was really funny actually, because I had a chat with my boss the other day about the conference, and
all right.
I know, yeah. See, you bring up these things at the most awkward of time. Anyway, she said, so what we're going to do this year? And she was like, do you want to do it this year? And I was like, yeah. And she went, oh, well, tell your face that then, wouldn't you? She didn't quite say it like that, but that's how I took it. Oh. I was like, oh, it's not that I loved doing I loved doing the conference. I can't talk about anything else, but it's just such hard work, isn't it? So yeah, but yeah, we're that will be in the next couple of weeks. Actually, we will be making a final decision on the topic this year. So who knows? Yeah, who knows?
I'm apparently running a conference.
Yeah, so I heard. Well, I've seen it on Twitter.
Yeah.
But I've not been on Twitter too much, so I don't...
We've booked Newcastle United Stadium for the it's Dr. Wendy. She's just... woman knows no bounds.
The thing is, if it's Dr. Wendy, then it's just going to happen, and it's just going to be one of those things that just happens as well.
Yeah, we've half filled it in 4 weeks.
Wow.
206... I think by the end of the month we'll have 300 people signed up. Wow. No, she terrifies me.
She's a woman on a mission, that one, isn't she?
Oh, unfortunately, I am the hammer which she beats things into submission with.
Yeah, you are the monkey and she is the organ grinder.
There's no doubt about that. I'm totally comfortable with my position. Anyway, speaking of monkeys and organ grinders, I went on my NVR course today, and yesterday, and the day before. It's really interesting because the Sarah Fisher conversation we had in the summer about NVR, we were both thoroughly convinced, weren't we?
Well, yeah, and I continue to be in a lot of ways, but yeah, cool.
So I went all bright and breezy, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I found it to be really, really thought-provoking. So I've had 3 days, so I'm whatever foundation level. And not that I particularly want to be a practitioner because I don't like working with people. No, you know what I mean.
Says the social worker. I don't particularly like people.
Well, I don't. I maybe need to clarify that.
Yeah, you do.
In case my boss is listening. I've had my appraisal for this year.
Sack him! Sack him!
Yeah, you can write to my boss at. No.
Oh, did you have an appraisal?
I did have an appraisal. But
okay. We'll come on to that in a minute because I want to ask your score for your appearance. Go on.
Right, okay. No, but I don't particularly want to be a family a family therapist. That's what I think. I mean, I don't particularly want to get in and start. I hate giving advice. So I hate dealing in people's murky lives. I found it really interesting, this NVR, because it kind of had this moment where I go, actually, this is not about children at all. And I found that really difficult, and I've really struggled with that because I think it's and I asked that question explicitly, what about the children, what their specific individual needs, and they kind of said, this is for parents, it's about parental presence, and I got all of that, and it's about coaching parents to kind of restore the relationship with children. It's about getting parents to kind of to be able to kind of stay within this authoritative role, not a controlling role. And so on some level, I thought this is great for lots of parents. This is going to work really well. But I just come away feeling quite unsure about all parents.
Okay.
And all children. And I've talked to a friend who's done the course as well, and they've sort of said the same. And I just think it's really complicated. And I think if you get the chance, go on the thing, because I think it felt at times that the course was it's this way or no way.
Yeah. Okay.
But actually,
that's interesting, because I haven't done the course. I did and the same people actually that you've done the training with, and I found it really interesting, because I kind of agree with you in a way that it is about the parental presence and all that sort of stuff. But actually, is it not more about a package of support? So yes, it's about the kind of some of the NVR bit, but it's also about what there's other things perhaps for the child as well, because let's face it, NVR is not going to provide the therapy for the child that the child needs to be able to come to terms with A, B, and C.
Which is what I struggled with, because I was quite clear that they were saying, well, this is not about the needs of the child.
Yeah.
And
okay.
But and I kind of I was like, oh, did I hear that right? And I did hear that right.
Yeah. But then it would be no different if you went in a particular parenting course, would it? I don't know which one. I've not done Safe Base, so I don't know, and I'm not.
No, me neither.
I probably shouldn't use that as an example, but I'm going to anyway, because that is more about the parenting kind of techniques of a child who's been adopted or who's have attachment and blah blah blah. So is that not a similar thing in some ways? Because it's not actually about the child, is it?
But then you could draw on PACE, which is a therapeutic model, which is very much more about the need. You are meeting the needs of your child, that playfulness, empathy, curiosity. I can't spell. Playfulness, acceptance, curiosity, empathy. PACE, EPAC. Let's just we'll set up our own and call it.
No, let's not do acronyms. I don't like an acronym, and neither do some of the listeners.
No, PACE, which is the Dan Hughes model, and I think that is very much therapeutic model, and so. Are the two mutually compatible? Can you draw? They? Is there a touching point for both of them? I don't know. So I've come over with more questions than I had.
Oh joy! That's never a good thing for you, is it?
No. I have got lots of questions, and I'm slightly nervous because I'm working with some families this week. So we're not nervous. I'm just trying to really want to make sure that I don't set people up to fail. Because what I was conscious of about some of the NVR stuff is around. Creating a presence, and I thought how a child sees themselves, how they see the world, their particular experience of the world, will then interpret what you're doing a certain way. And that's where I kind of felt uncomfortable. I thought, well, I know that some of my children would interpret this a certain way, and there's nothing. You've got to be so careful, like the shame thing, which I know that my daughter, she's like a simmering cauldron of shame. Anything will tip her over. Literally, even a raised eyebrow from 100 yards away is enough. So actually, some of this stuff, some of the models around NVR, that they need to be adjusted to not push her into that place. I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking too soon, perhaps.
Well, who knows? I mean, I've not done a 5-day NVR course, so I don't know.
I'm slightly scared they'll come and NVR me.
Yeah, but I think as well, there are some elements of it that will be really useful in what you do. So, I wouldn't beat yourself up over it, but...
No, I've got plenty of people who can beat me up anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the stuff around baskets, around you choosing behaviours can...
Oh, I so believe in that.
I mean, that's but that is your joke, but I think that can be transformative for people, can't it?
Yeah, it can. Actually, you're right.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
But you have to be in that mindset to do it. That's the thing. I mean, even now... I did it the other week with Brandon, who's 20 in July, and another thing, and it was all the stuff that was in that little basket at the end, and I brought it into the whole conversation. I didn't quite do it in the way that I've just kind of made out, but But certainly the conversation just led into the other stuff that's been irritating me for rather a few months. But actually, I just took the opportunity
stuff,
because it connected. And you know what? None of us are perfect. Let's face it. But the basket thing, I have to do that every day. But I have to check myself when I'm doing it to make sure that I'm doing it properly, because it doesn't work otherwise, does it?
So that NVR thing is I think that's where it's good. It's about you kind of getting your head right, and getting your heart right, getting your priorities right. So I think what I'm saying is that, I don't know. But what I did find interesting, and this is maybe me not being cynical, but I thought this is a model for adoption, because that's where the money is. If I'm being really not cynical, is it cynical? If that's where the money is, there's the adoption support fund, and but you won't see NVR being used with any other communities of.
Well, do you know what? That's actually a lie. And what I mean by a lie is
untrue.
Before the Adoption Support Fund, Adoption UK actually, the CPV pilot that we did, Child and Parent Violence.
Back in the day.
Before Mr. Coates and Dr. Thorley did their little survey, that then became a bigger survey. We did a pilot, and NVR training was provided within the CPV pilot, and that was back 5 years ago. Right. So I'm not. Obviously, they were for adoptive parents, but I'm just saying in terms of
But that's my other thought about NVR is that you've got to have parents who can have the capacity to engage. They've got to be motivated. They've got to. It's to an extent it's self-selecting. And it was interesting listening to some practitioners who were saying, actually, for some people, then if they're not ready, this doesn't work. If you don't, you go all in or don't go in at all.
Not at all. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I thought, well, no, I don't want to stereotype adopters.
But you're gonna.
I don't mind. I'm happy to stereotype adopters. But they're usually motivated, usually well educated, usually they're people who've got themselves through all of those processes. Anyway, so they've kind of got that level of agency.
Great actors, aren't they?
Yeah. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because that's a cohort of people who are potentially ripe to engage. So that bears fruit of what you've done before. So, I hope I'm not being cynical. Am I cynical?
Well, do you know what? I think until you see it in practice, sometimes it's difficult not to be, isn't it? If it's something that you're just not 100% sure about. But I mean, I use the baskets. I use the poopy sandwich. I use the stuff that's non-shame. I don't like doing the shaming stuff. Obviously, nobody does. I mean, you wouldn't do it willingly, would you?
Well,
but I think you have to adjust it for your own children as well, don't you?
Well, they would say no. Well,
I know they would, but I've not done the course.
NVR would say no,
and I can do what I like.
You can do what you like, but NVR would say no. You do it NVR way.
Yeah, I know.
Otherwise, it's not NVR then. And again,
no, I get that, but equally, my child is different to your child.
Yes.
And the way they react to it. And actually, if it works for us, he's, and I am thinking of Jacob here when I use this as an example. And I don't care what everybody thinks about me using him as an example, because he's, let's just be honest about it. I do it in a particular way for him, and some of the NVR techniques would not work with him, but the majority of them do. So I have to take some of those techniques away and deal with them a bit differently, and that's it, And if it works for us, well, it does. That's the point. That is the point. And do you know what? He's intelligent. He is thriving. All those sorts. Those little holes. We can almost see them. We obviously can't see them because we haven't taken the back off his head. But you can almost see them kind of developing overnight on occasions, because he's in that place at the minute where he's just able to take it in, kind of thing, and we're in a better place because of it.
It's odd.
So we're noticing it.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking specifically with Flossie, and it was odd.
I bet you were.
Yeah, I bet I was. We did some role play, and I just played out a scene from my life, but I was thinking, actually, it was odd because we've had a tumultuous January. Very long January, but in the middle of all that, there was this moment where peace came on her,
right? And
that sounds I'm not sure if that's a way we talk, is it?
No, I know.
Do you know what I mean?
It's
But
true.
Out of all of this, what had been a very fractious moment, very challenging behaviour for all of us, then this peace descended for a few hours, and it was a moment where I thought, right, dive in, and this is not a time to go, and you've done it. It was just a time to say, I love you. Do you know what I mean? And I thought,
I get that.
as much as all of that, it was a time when and she's a big girl, so I cupped her face and I said, I love you, and I kissed her on the cheek, and she just went.
And she punched you.
And she got me an arm lock.
Yeah.
She just took it and just sort of smiled and walked off. Yeah. And I thought, right, we connected for a moment there. So sometimes you just got to take it, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. No. Anywho, was there something else we were going to talk about? I can't remember. Did you adopt? You've been to Ireland, haven't you?
Oh, I have, lad.
What are you doing in Ireland again?
More wedding preparation.
Are you literally building a castle to have a wedding?
No, we had to go over. Do you know what? I think I said this in the last podcast. Whose idea was it to get married? Honest to God.
Chris.
So, yeah. Well, he asked.
Quite easy.
He was offering me champagne at the time. That's probably
all right. I see how that works.
So we went over because we had to register. We had to register our intent to marriage.
Of course. And you have to get readings and things.
Oh, my days. Seriously, man. This was a headache. We had to get our birth certificates and our bill from the last 3 months for our water bill, blah, blah. We had to get it all stamped by the Foreign Commonwealth Office.
Did you?
And we had to pay for the privilege to get married in Ireland. Come on, Mrs. May. What's with this backstop?
Yeah, backstop, schmackstop. Just crack on.
Now, bear in mind, when we first said, let's get married in Ireland, that'd be lovely. We were like, we'll just go over, we'll just turn up, we'll just do it. That'll be fine. No, apparently not. We had until the 10th of February to do it. So we had to go over and register.
Why the 10th of February?
Because that's 3 months before the wedding.
Right, yeah, right, okay.
You are remembering that date, aren't you, Al? So 4 months? Is it 4 months? 3 months? No, it's 3 months. Yeah, 3 months before the wedding. So you have to register your intent to marry 3 months.
I didn't, because I didn't get married in a church.
It doesn't matter where you get married over there. You have to do it 3 months in advance.
Oh, right.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I don't remember it being that long here, so maybe it's if you're from abroad. But of course, you have to have all your stuff. I can't even remember the name they used, but anyway, we had to have it all done by the Foreign Commonwealth Office to make sure they knew.
The Queen.
Yeah, exactly. She got involved. Old Queenie. Prince Philip. That's where he was going that day.
Yeah.
He was driving the documents back to us.
A big pile of your water bills and
Anyway, that aside, so we had to go and do that. And then we met with the guy who's going to be performing the ceremony. Now, seriously, I was rocking up. I was walking in. I was saying I do, and then I was going to the bar. Apparently, you're not allowed to do that. Apparently, you have to do it in a proper way. He even had a structure. There's a ceremony you have to do. I mean, seriously. There's music involved. There's readings involved.
You have to have music.
Candles involved.
Candles?
I mean, yeah, there's candles.
You have to have candles.
Yeah, we have to have candles.
But why do you have to have candles?
I don't know if it's just maybe something they do in the fabulous Republic of Ireland or not. I don't know. So, of course, now I'm going in my head going, well, what music are we... Because we need 4 pieces of music for the blimmin' 35-minute ceremony. And I've got to say I do and say vows and stuff. I mean, seriously.
You've got to do that. I mean, that's standard, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah, you've got to say that.
I didn't sign
that
up for
form
this
of words.
I didn't sign up.
What do you do about the living a... Oh, it's the same.
I'm not obeying nobody.
You've just blown my mind. Is there a set...
Oh. Well, who knows? I don't know.
Oh. I'll have to think about that.
There you go. See? Yeah.
It's uncharted territory.
So I've now got another list of jobs for the ceremony for everybody, of which I sent you a photograph earlier.
I did send you a photograph. I noticed I'm down to do some interpretive dance at some point.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
In a kilt.
In a kilt. With underwear on, please.
Yes.
But it did. But it was interesting because we have been away, and we were
And
talking.
that's it. I went out from the podcast. Well, just to stop you there, I went out from the podcast, and she was watching the telly. And I said to her, I said, "How the hell do you not know how tall I am? I've been married to you for 23 years. I've known you for 26 years."
And she went, "Why, I man, you're 5'4"?
Because she's a wee Scottish lassie. No, she said, "Well, aren't you 5 foot?" And I went, "No, I'm 5'10 3/4."
Yeah.
Very pedantic. We fell out over it.
No, you didn't.
No, we didn't. I was indignant with mock rage.
I bet you were. But have you sorted out your vital statistics with your wife of 23 years now?
Yeah, and then we had a conversation about why Scott would need my inside leg for a kill.
And did she get that quite quickly? Please tell me.
There was a moment of realization.
Although, to be fair, if I turn up and they do my inside leg measurement, I'm going to feel a bit of a fool when I go to get measured up for it.
Do you have to get measured up for it?
Well, I do, yeah. And then
I'm just wearing any old kilt.
Yeah, you're just going to be strapped in, and if we need an old bootlace around it to keep it up, then that's fine.
Yeah,
by the end of the night, it'll be down at your ankles, and you'll be scaring the local children. I
will lose my registration.
You will. You definitely. Well, you're in the Republic of Ireland. You'll be fine. Yeah. But yeah, so it's just been the usual kind of wedding stuff going on, spending lots of money on it. I just didn't realise.
Almonds in little net bags.
Oh, do you know what?
What the hell is that about?
What is that all about?
What?
I know what they call favours or something, isn't it?
Favours?
And who eats them?
Yeah,
who eats sugared almonds?
Oh, I like sugared almonds.
I'll tell you what. If anybody,
the only reason I'm coming.
Well, that's just charming, isn't it? I'm offering him a meal, some drinks, and he's just coming for the sugar almonds.
I know. I have to wear a kilt though. Are we just rambling now? Have we turned it?
We are a little bit, but anyway, that's what's occupied my weekend. So
Excellent.
There you go. Yeah. Same old.
Well, we have got. We're going to speak to Joanne Alper soon, aren't we?
We are.
That's the word on the
trying
street.
to pin her down, and I'm literally talking about pins into her clothes to pin her down. And we're also going to be talking to Ben Ashcroft in a couple of weeks as well.
Excellent, that's good news. And Betsy DeTherry, who's going to talk about shame.
So we have got some good guests lined up, haven't we? Hopefully there'll be more interest in us two just sitting here chewing the fat and cracking out the jokes.
Yeah, talking about your wedding.
Yeah, I'll be glad when it's over, to be honest.
Oh, won't we all?
Oh my days! I'm so pleased I asked you to be my best man.
Well, I tell you what, I said to Paula, I said, look, we're going to do it on the Thursday. You're going to get married on the Friday, and we'll all be together on Saturday. And I thought, why don't you and me go and have let's go off and hire a car and go off and maybe go and see some stuff and maybe have a day and a half away, come back on the Monday. And she went, why? And I went, because we talk a lot about how we don't get much time together and how it's one of those things that is really important. And she went, I want to stay with Scott. And I thought to myself, honestly, I can't win.
Well, to be fair, until the Sunday, I'm pretty much going to be socialising.
You chose your words carefully there. Yeah. So I think she wants to socialise with you.
Yeah, well, do you know what? She's coming all that way, and we don't. To be fair, we don't get time together, do we? No. And I do think we need to do. Tris and I talked about some form of podcasting or something, maybe on the morning of the wedding or something, or maybe a little interview. You can interview the grooms separately or some rubbish like that. And, we'll have to do something. And I'm sure that everybody will be on tenterhooks waiting. Not.
It's like.
I'm sure nobody will give a toss, to be fair.
Well, I'm sure your mother will probably listen to it. Oh, she'll be there, won't she? I don't know. Do you have a mother?
No, I was growing in a test tube.
Explains an awful lot. Anyway, I'm bored of you now.
And I'm bored of you.
Yeah, well, get lost.
You get giddy at this time of night, don't you?
I do, yeah. It's past my
on your bottle of low alcohol beer and your Bourneville chocolate.
Zero alcohol beer, and you still have to get authority to get it to buy it in the shops.
I know, what's that all about? Anyway, yes.
Anyway, Right,
Lovely
okay.
chatting.
All
Enjoy
the
your
best.
week, listeners.
Yeah.
And we will talk to you soon.
For sure. Bye-bye.
Bye.